At 6:42 a.m. on November 18th, a railway maintenance crew arrived at an abandoned station on the outskirts of Black Ridge County to inspect flood damage after a night of heavy rain. The station had been closed for nearly 20 years. There shouldn't have been anyone there. But scattered across Platform 2, they found fresh, muddy footprints leading toward the tracks. Only toward them. None coming back. Minutes later, one of the workers discovered a leather wallet lying beside an old signal post. Inside was the identification card of 24-year-old Luke Carter, a man who had been reported missing only hours earlier. The strange part wasn't that his wallet had been found. It was what investigators found inside it. A train ticket, stamped at 12:03 a.m. for a railway line that had officially stopped operating 19 years before. So where had Luke gone? And who or what had issued that ticket?
Luke Carter lived alone in the quiet town of Ashcombe, roughly 40 miles from Black Ridge. Friends described him as responsible, punctual, and practical. He wasn't the type to chase ghost stories or explore abandoned places for fun. He had spent months preparing for a final interview with a construction firm. The position promised enough money to clear his late father's debts and help support his widowed mother. The interview was scheduled for 7 o'clock the following morning in the city. Missing it wasn't an option. That evening, weather reports warned of severe storms moving across the region. Several highways were partially flooded, causing widespread travel delays. Luke waited as long as he could, hoping conditions would improve. They didn't. At 10:47 p.m., he grabbed his backpack, kissed his mother goodbye, and promised to call as soon as he arrived. According to her statement, she stopped him at the front door. "You don't have to leave tonight," she told him. "Go in the morning." Luke smiled. "If I wait until morning, I'll lose everything." Those were the last words she ever heard him say. Security cameras from Luke's neighborhood captured him walking through steady rain toward the main road, occasionally checking his watch. He looked calm, focused, determined. At 11:08 p.m., a taxi finally stopped. The driver was later interviewed by investigators. He claimed every road leading to the city had been closed because of flooding. Then he remembered something. "There is another station," he told Luke. "It's old, but sometimes freight trains still pass through." Luke asked if trains still stopped there. The driver hesitated, then simply answered, "Sometimes." The station sat nearly 3 miles outside town, hidden behind overgrown trees and rusted fencing. When Luke arrived, the taxi driver refused to enter the parking lot. Instead, he dropped him at the entrance. As Luke reached for his fare, the driver quietly said something investigators initially dismissed as superstition. "If a train arrives without a destination board, don't get on." Luke laughed politely, closed the door, and watched the taxi disappear into the rain. The station was unnaturally quiet. No staff, no ticket office, no security guards. The electronic timetable had frozen at 11:59. The waiting room smelt of damp wood and rust. Several old suitcases rested beneath a bench,
covered in thick dust. Yet the floor around them showed fresh, wet footprints, as though someone had just walked past. Luke called out. No answer. Only the faint sound of dripping water echoing through the empty building. Then, a station bell rang. Once. The sound echoed across every platform. But investigators later confirmed that Bell had been disconnected from power nearly 2 decades earlier. So, who rang it? At exactly 12:03 a.m., Luke's phone recorded one final GPS location: Black Ridge Station. After that, the signal disappeared completely. Not weakened, not interrupted, simply gone. Several residents living near the abandoned railway later reported hearing an unusually loud train horn around midnight. That immediately raised questions. Official railway logs showed no scheduled trains anywhere near Black Ridge that night. One elderly resident told investigators she looked through her bedroom window after hearing the horn. She described seeing an old passenger train moving slowly through the fog. It wasn't moving like modern trains, she said. It drifted. Another witness claimed the carriages had lights inside, but no engine headlights. Others insisted they saw people sitting beside the windows, perfectly still, watching the station. At first, investigators believed these reports had been influenced by local folklore. For decades, Black Ridge residents had shared stories about a so-called midnight line. According to the legend, an abandoned passenger train appears only to people desperate enough to board it. Those who step inside are never seen alive again. Most dismissed the story as nothing more than a rural myth, until detectives recovered Luke's mobile phone. It wasn't found on the tracks or inside the station. It was discovered nearly a mile away in an empty field. The screen was shattered. The battery somehow still held a charge. Only one file remained: a voice recording, 23 seconds long. The first few seconds captured nothing except the rhythmic sound of train wheels. Then Luke whispered, "I don't think these people are breathing." Silence followed. Then another sound, one investigators couldn't explain. Dozens of voices, speaking at the exact same moment. Not loudly, not aggressively, just one chilling sentence. Next stop, no one returns. What investigators would later discover would completely change the case. The recording contained something almost impossible. Beneath the overlapping voices, audio experts isolated the distant sound of an old railway station announcement. The announcement matched archival recordings from Black Ridge Station, recorded in 1987. The year a passenger train vanished on this very line without a single survivor ever being found. And somehow, that announcement had been captured on Luke's phone in the present day. The discovery of the recording changed the investigation overnight. Detectives stopped treating Luke's disappearance as a routine missing person case. Railway historians were brought in. Audio experts examined the recording frame by frame. Nothing made sense. The station announcement embedded in Luke's phone wasn't publicly available. The original tapes had been locked away in a railway archive for decades. Yet every word matched. Even more disturbing, a railway employee reviewing old maintenance records found something that had been overlooked. The final train to leave Blackridge in 1987 wasn't supposed to stop there at all. According to dispatch logs, it had been rerouted because of severe weather. Then, it vanished. No wreckage, no bodies, no explanation. Back in the present, forensic teams searched every inch of the abandoned station. Inside the waiting room, they found Luke's backpack. It was dry. Completely dry. Despite having sat through an entire night of heavy rain. And inside were his interview documents, his wallet receipt, and a small notebook. One page had been torn out. The next page contained only one sentence. If the train stops, don't let them know you're alive. No one could explain when he had written it. Luke's mother insisted it wasn't his handwriting. Investigators compared the ink to the pens inside his bag. It matched. But the pressure, spacing, and writing style belonged to someone else. Then came the CCTV footage. Although the station had no working electricity, an old security camera had somehow recorded 12 seconds of video before shutting off forever. The footage showed Luke standing alone on platform 2. He looked at his watch, then toward the tracks. A dense wall of fog rolled across the platform. For 3 seconds, Luke disappeared inside it. When the fog cleared, he was no longer standing alone. Rows of silent passengers surrounded him. None of them had walked into frame. They were simply there, and every face pointed toward the tracks, waiting. The footage ended before the train appeared. Authorities released a statement suggesting the images were likely caused by electrical interference. For a brief moment, the public accepted that explanation. The case seemed ready to fade. Then, another witness came forward. A freight engineer reported seeing an old passenger train crossing an unused bridge at 12:14 a.m. the same night Luke disappeared. His locomotive camera captured only 6 blurry frames. The bridge had no active rails. It hadn't carried a train in 19 years. Yet something had crossed it. Something large enough to shake the steel. Months later, investigators enhanced Luke's final voice recording. Hidden beneath the overlapping whispers, they found another voice. Luke's. Only it wasn't the frightened whisper heard at the beginning. This voice sounded calm, almost resigned. He said, "I counted 62 passengers." A pause. But none of them blink. Then his breathing became faster. "The conductor keeps asking for my return ticket. I told him I don't have one." Another long silence. Then Luke whispered something that sent chills through everyone listening. "Everyone here thinks I'm already dead." The recording erupted with the sound of metal grinding against metal. A train horn screamed.
And then came the station announcement. Final stop. The next sound lasted less than 2 seconds. A door opening, followed by dozens of footsteps leaving the train. Luke gasped. "No! They're getting off!" The recording ended there. Search teams returned to the station one final time. Near the edge of Platform 2, they discovered dozens of footprints pressed into the mud. All identical, all facing away from the tracks. Yet none continued beyond the platform. It was as though an entire crowd had stepped off a train and vanished where they stood. Nearly a year after Luke disappeared, one final piece of evidence surfaced. An amateur photographer was reviewing old landscape photos taken the same stormy night. In the background of one image, a passenger train emerged through the rain. Its windows were brightly lit. Investigators enlarged the photograph. Inside one carriage sat dozens of silent passengers. Most faces were impossible to distinguish, except one: Luke. He was pressed against the window, his hand flat against the glass, his mouth open, as if shouting for help. The timestamp on the camera read 12:16 a.m., 3 minutes after Luke's phone had already gone silent. Experts confirmed the image had not been altered. No one could explain how a train officially erased from railway records appeared in the photograph, or how Luke appeared inside it. Luke Carter was never found. His case remains officially listed as a missing person investigation. Railway authorities maintain that no passenger trains have operated through Blackridge Station since its closure. Yet reports have never completely stopped. On stormy nights, nearby residents still claim they hear a distant train horn echo across the abandoned tracks. Some describe seeing warm lights moving through the fog where no railway should exist. Others report hearing an announcement carried by the wind: "Now boarding." In 2024, a railway inspector conducting a routine survey found something tucked beneath the rusted bench where Luke had waited. It was a ticket. Old. Yellowed. Stamped with the date Luke disappeared. On the back, written in faded black ink, were 6 words: "Your return was never the journey home." No fingerprints were recovered. No one has ever claimed to have placed it there. And perhaps the most unsettling question of all is this: if Luke boarded a train that officially never existed, then who is still collecting tickets at the last stop?